Why do we love a good redemption arc? Is it part of the human condition to seek the chance to right our wrongs? And if so, is art our way of exploring that deep-rooted desire? What makes redemption such a satisfying narrative tool? And which games offer the best redemption arcs you can experience right now? Join me as I break down why redemption is one of the most compelling themes in storytelling. There's an ongoing discussion in the gaming community about the motivations of the main character in the Shadow of the Colossus. Many believe that the protagonist, Vander, is driven by love. The story goes like this. His journey begins with the belief that if he defeats all the Colossi, then his lover, whose dead body he carries with tenderness to the shrine of worship, will be brought back to life. This interpretation suggests that love, the classic motivator, is what pushes Vander through the dangerous path of slaying these giants. However, while love is a plausible explanation, I find this interpretation even more compelling. Let me set up the stage. The game presents a simple relationship between Vander and the young woman. She is depicted with an aura of purity. Her design evokes innocence and fragility. Vander, on the other hand, is portrayed as capable, reckless, even naive. What brought him to the Forbidden Lands? What if Vander in his recent past is responsible for the death of this young woman? Or maybe she's someone he swore to protect and failed to uphold his duty? In either case, filled with guilt and remorse for his actions, he set out to redeem himself. To atone for the horrific mistake, his redemption can only be achieved through blood and sacrifice. Each Colossus he defeats represents not just a physical battle, but an act of penance. We, the player, watch as he loses a piece of himself after each victory when the demons invade his body. Despite this, he will not stop. Nothing matters to him. His only mission is to bring her back to life. This interpretation adds a layer of tragic complexity to the story, one when Vander's actions are driven not just by idealized love, but by the dark weight of guilt and the need to atone for terrible sin. Now, I like a good romance story as much as the next, bro, but don't tell me that you don't like the second version more. The question is, why? Why is the redemption arc so compelling in this case? What needs to be in place to facilitate it? To begin to answer that, we need to first ask ourselves, what qualifies a character for a redemption arc? Part 1. No one is perfect. In Dante's Inferno, we follow the story of a man who must confront and accept the consequences of his actions. Dante, once a Knight Templar in the Crusades, possessed by his immutable faith to Christianity, ended up committing many atrocities that will later come to haunt him. Because in writing misdeeds must have consequences, when he returns home, he finds his wife and his community ruthlessly murdered. But this punishment wouldn't be enough to balance the scale of sin. So immediately after he witnesses the aftermath of the massacre, Death himself comes to claim him for the underworld. While in the Seventh Seal we see this exact premise, but in that story the battle was intellectual, here Dante must fight with Death like he fought all of the people he killed along the way. What happens if he loses? Death promises hell to Dante, where he can pay for an eternity for his sins. Our protagonist, being fully aware of his misdeeds, would probably have accepted this fate, but not when the person he loves has to suffer unfairly because of him. He finds the strength to defeat the Grim Reaper and sets out on a perilous journey through the depths of hell, determined to bring back his lover. This, as you might imagine, will not be an easy journey, and most likely will not have a happy ending. But our character needs to earn his redemption. Redemption cannot be handed so easily. It is important to know how our perception can change by the sheer fact that love is such a relatable thing. It will be easy for us, the player, to condone all possible punishment towards Dante, given that in many ways he's a clear villain given his past actions. When we see how much he cares for his wife and what he is willing to do to get her, we'll easily find ourselves supporting Dante to the bitter end. So even though the characters that go through a redemption arc are rarely good guys, it is important to have an anchor of humanity that the player can use to relate to them. A journey to hell is a very dramatic way to illustrate the need for hardship in the pursuit of redemption. The main fuel for such endeavor is guilt, and salvation will be saving someone else. But what if our character needs to save themselves from themselves? Yes, I did read that line a lot of times and I still end up choosing to say it. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice is based on the same premise as Dante's Inferno, but with a small twist. Senua, filled with guilt for her partner's death, decides to go to Helheim to find him. While on this path, she has to fight the gods that protect the realm, while also fighting with her psychosis.
No one will ever know. Oh, she heard us.
The psychosis adds an element of uncertainty to the storytelling, making Senua an unreliable narrator. Many elements and the way they play out during the storytelling can easily be interpreted as memories of the past that haunt her, and she needs to either overcome or simply find peace with. It's easy to assume that Senua will probably not save her lover, but maybe she can save herself. As I have demonstrated with these two examples, the cornerstone of a compelling redemption story is guilt and remorse. In both examples, the struggle for redemption lies within the characters, with a path forward requiring them to embrace suffering and take meaningful action. But what happens when the source of guilt is flipped? What if guilt stems not from what you did, but from what you failed to do? When action was necessary, you remained still. Part 2. Memories of the Unmade. For most of us, it's hard to relate to characters that in the past have committed the worst crimes imaginable. Our mistakes, no matter how important they feel at the time, still get dwarfed by real atrocities. What usually haunts us about our past choices is usually the lack of making them. Takemichi, a 26-year-old man, is stuck in a dull and uneventful existence, spending his days in a torpid state on his couch. But everything changes when he hears devastating news on the TV. His high school girlfriend has been killed by the infamous Manji gang. The weight of his past crushes down on him. Back in high school, he abandoned her and his friends to escape the gang's servitude, a decision that has haunted him ever since. While grappling with his memories, Takemichi finds himself pushed onto the train tracks. In those final moments, as he prepares to meet his end, something extraordinary happens. He's transported back in time to his high school days. Confronted with his former cowardice, the same weakness that led him to abandon the people he cared about, Takemichi realizes this is his second chance. Now he must confront his regrets, make amends, and become the man he once failed to be. We all can relate to some degree with cowardice in inaction, from the smallest of things like being scared to talk to someone or not being able to protect people that needed help. Now that we've seen both roads that set up a redemption arc, so guilt and cowardice, let's see an example that finds a way to combine both. Silent Voice is a movie about a bully. His name is Ishida. As bullies tend to do, he starts attacking the new student that had just arrived at his school, which in this case has the condition of being deaf. His relentless bullying finds no end, even when she refuses to retaliate. Or maybe because she refuses to retaliate, his bullying continues. All this eventually led to her leaving the school, and the whole class turns against him for his behavior. As the years go by and he finds himself alone and ready to give up, he realizes that giving up will be too easy. What he must do is find her and try to redeem himself, even after all these years later. We know what happens when no action to redeem oneself occurs. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment talks in great detail about the mental death of 1,000 cuts that occurs to the human psyche as one fights his past demons with no redemption in sight. So in short, the message of the movie is that to be able to move on, one must find a way to give back to others. How far one must go is beautifully illustrated in a lesser-known gem called The Fisher King. In the film, the main character attempts to half-heartedly make amends for the life he ruined, only to realize that redemption is far from easy.
Say something!
It requires sincerity, effort, and a willingness to face the depth of one's mistakes. In conclusion, our characters are deeply haunted by the weight of their past actions. Guilt and cowardice linger over them, plaguing their souls. To find redemption, they must confront their pain, endure suffering, and make amends. The act of giving back could be directed towards those that they wronged, or, alternatively, towards someone entirely new, offer them a fresh path to restore their humanity. That way, we have a great setup for a redemption arc. Part 3. From Vengeance to Redemption. What I love about a good redemption story is how it challenges the audience on two profound levels. First, it often requires violent characters to remain entangled in violence, all while compelling the viewer to understand the deeper reasons behind their actions. Second, it pushes us to empathize with individuals who at the beginning of the story were clearly corrupt. Kratos has been someone that, although he has found himself in beloved games, he himself was rarely a beloved character. The game frequently reminds the player of the injustices he suffered, fueling his relentless fury and justifying his actions. Yet, in the midst of his epic battles, the humanity of his story is often lost. Kratos' indiscriminate killing of innocents and his unwillingness to assist others unless it served his own interest paint him as a character devoid of compassion, and he received none in turn from the player. When the third installment attempted to add depth and moral complexity to his character, the transformation felt contrived. That is where the last two games came to play with our perception. Kratos being a piece of shit in the last games is the perfect setup for a redemption arc. After what transpired in the previous game, he's left purposeless, while still retaining his harsh and aloof demeanor. The catalyst for his gradual change as a character are first his son and the obligation he has as a father to teach him how to survive, and secondly, his wife's tragic passing. This setup works on three levels. First, his son becomes something he has to protect and teach about the dangers of the world. Second, this whole journey deepens the connection Kratos has with his son, creating an emotional bond. Third, the quest is now is not based on vengeance like the last three games, but is instead an act of service, spreading his wife's ashes on top of a picturesque mountain. By achieving this, Kratos undergoes a stark transformation from a loud killing machine to a caring father, in a way that feels natural. Layer in the hint of a poetic justice from the weight of his past misdeeds, and his redemption arc takes on an even greater depth, which of course I will not spoil here. And with that, we're at the end. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I post every 4 months. Why the hell not? For those wondering why there was no Red Dead Redemption 2 in the video about redemption arcs, the simple answer is that I'm waiting for the 60 FPS patch some years now, and I refuse to play it if that doesn't happen. I hope you have a nice day, and I will see you next one. Bye!